Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead Aherne. Today's top stories: the Cabinet's due to approve the appointment of 17 Ministers of State later, with 2 Waterford TDs in the mix. The new Health Minister is to examine the next steps to providing 24/7 cardiac care at University Hospital Waterford. The chair of the COVID-19 advisory group says an increase in the number of people allowed gather indoors isn't an excuse for a house party. And in sport, the dates for the FA Cup semi-finals at Wembley have been finalised. The junior ministerial appointments could be announced tonight. There's extra pressure on Micheál Martin to address the regional imbalance in the Cabinet and his appointments. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe reports.
The final list of appointees is yet to be signed off on, but is set to be approved at a Cabinet meeting this evening. Depending on how late that runs, the list of names could then be announced tonight or in the morning. There's pressure on to address the regional imbalances in the west and south east. Donegal TDs Joe McHugh and Charlie McConalogue have been tipped, though one may lose out to the other. Galway's Anne Rabbitte is thought a safe bet, as is Meath East TD Thomas Byrne. Limerick TDs Patrick O'Donovan, Niall Collins and Brian Ledden are also in the discussion for a call-up. The South East has no Cabinet Minister, but may have a number of junior ministers, with Wexford's James Brown, Carlo Kilkenny's John Paul Phelan and Malcolm Noonan, and Mary Butler and Mark O'Cohasig from Waterford, all potential appointments. Other names tipped for appointments are Jim O'Callaghan, Martin Hayden, Peter Burke, Robert Troy, Mark McSharry and Jack Chambers. There will also be pressure on to address the gender balance issues in ministerial appointments, but most of them today will likely be male.
The Labour leader, meanwhile, says appointing 20 junior ministers is excessive. Alan Kelly, himself a former minister, spoke to Damien Tiernan on Data Today and says the cost of junior ministers wasn't as high in his time.
While there was 15, there wasn't 20. Bar one of the health ministers, there were no advisors. So in total, this is significant savings for the taxpayer, and we'll see what the government announced today, but I think 20 junior ministers is totally, excessive.
The new Health Minister has given a commitment to meet with the HSE and the 4 Waterford TDs to find out what the next step is to providing 24/7 cardiac care at University Hospital Waterford. Stephen Donnelly, who was appointed to the job at the weekend, was responding to a Dáil question from Sinn Féin TD David Cullinane. Deputy Cullinane told the Minister that his party leader and current Taoiseach Micheál Martin gave a commitment to Waterford many years ago.
Your party leader, now the Taoiseach Micheál Martin, stood behind the banner, said if Fianna Fáil were in government he would deliver on this issue. You are now in government, you are the Minister, Micheál Martin is the Taoiseach. Mary Butler talked earlier about the good work that was done by all of us in the region, and that work resulted in the last Minister for Health committing the funding to a second cath lab. So that's now delivered, that's now there. So the direct question I have for you, Minister, is can you give me and the people of Waterford and the South East a categorical commitment that 24/7 cardiac care for the South East, emergency care, will be delivered by you as the Minister for Health?
Minister Donnelly says the next step is to find out what's required to proceed.
How many cardiologists are required? How many technicians are required? What other support staff are needed? What linkages are needed between the various hospitals? The goal is 24/7 care. The first and critical big step is the cath lab. If the Deputy doesn't mind, as I am, this is literally my second day in the job, what I want to do is I want to sit down with the HSE and understand the steps that are required, and I'd very much like to meet the Deputy and meet the Waterford TDs and discuss how we progress it, because it is a really important issue for the region.
The HSE is set to launch its COVID-19 contact tracing app this week. It's being developed by Waterford company Nearform, which is headquartered in Tramore. However, the app is subject to an agreement from Cabinet to release it, as Andrew Lowth reports.
Is it safe? That's the big issue around it. Is there more information to come out? I'm not sure.
I mean, obviously there are concerns, the big brother concerns, but at the end of the day, I think people's health and well-being has to take precedent over that.
These people in Dublin giving their thoughts on the HSE's app with fairly mixed responses. The new app has been talked about throughout the lockdown, and it looks like we may see more information this week. However, it's not without its critics. Elizabeth Farries from the Irish Council of Civil Liberties has concerns over privacy.
Irish scientists are worried that the app might in fact collect personal details and what they call granular location data about an individual's movements. That violates the principle of data minimization.
Technology correspondent Jess Kelly says it's up to the individual if they want to make their diagnosis known.
When the contact tracing team calls you, or when you're onto the contact tracing team after you've been a confirmed case, they will ask, do you consent to issuing the diagnosis keys?
Ahead of the launch, the HSE says the app's costs have reached €850,000 so far.
The number of COVID-positive patients in hospitals across the country has fallen again. However, the number remains unchanged in Waterford. The HSE's daily operations update has a total of 19 confirmed cases in hospital, 2 of whom are in University Hospital Waterford. UHW is the only hospital in the South East with positive cases. Cork, Galway and Limerick all have 1 patient each. As of 8 o'clock last night, 3 suspected cases were awaiting the results of coronavirus testing at University Hospital Waterford. An expert in the number of people, an increase in the number of people allowed gather indoors isn't an excuse for a house party, according to the chair of the COVID-19 Expert Advisory Group. A maximum of 50 are now allowed indoors as part of the latest measure to ease lockdown restrictions and reopen the economy. However, a video has emerged on social media of a party in a Waterford City housing estate. It shows the Gardaí arriving and at least 60 youngsters leaving a house. Dr. Cillian de Gascon says a recent increase in cases and clusters suggests people aren't restricting their social network as much as they'd like. He says bigger gatherings should only be in large indoor spaces.
It's 50 people where social distancing and physical distancing can be maintained, and certainly not intended to mean a house party. It's intended towards locations, as you said, like a church, like a town hall, where 50 people can be indoors but maintain physical distancing so that they don't all become close contacts should one of them become a confirmed case.
A fisherman has been airlifted to hospital in Waterford. The man sustained injuries on board a trawler 40 miles south of Dunmore East. Neville Murphy from Dunmore Ornelai says they were alerted just after 8 o'clock this morning.
For a medical evacuation of an injured fisherman on board a trawler approximately 40 miles south of Dunmore East. We launched shortly after that, and thankfully helicopter rescue 117 arrived on scene shortly before us, and they airlifted the man back to Waterford Airport. And we were stood down at that time, and about an hour later we arrived back in Dunmore East Station. So thankfully the man is in hospital now. We wish him speedy recovery.
A man in his 30s is recovering in hospital after being beaten up by a man who was robbing his house in County Tipperary. 2 men broke into the home at Westgate Court in Irishtown in Clonmel at around 5:30 this morning and stole a number of items. The homeowner woke up and chased one of the suspects down the road, where he was then assaulted. Following a search of the Irishtown area, 2 men in their 20s and 30s were arrested. The curate in Tramore says a spontaneous applause greeted priests saying Mass this week. Churches reopened as part of the lifting of coronavirus restrictions on Monday. Father Shane O'Neill is from the Holy Cross Church in Tramore.
It struck me very much the first morning back when Father O'Mahony began the Mass in the usual way, "The Lord be with you," and everybody responded, "and with your spirit." And it just echoed through the church, and it just struck us. We haven't heard this in a while, and it's those little things that you miss. We were given a spontaneous round of applause at the end of Mass, which we completely weren't expecting.
The CEO of Waterford's Blackwater Distillery says they've been busy despite the COVID outbreak. The Ballyduff Upper-based distillery started making hand sanitiser for frontline workers in March, but are concentrating again on their spirits. Today they've won 2 gold awards at the Global Gin Masters 2020 for their Boyle's Irish Gin and Raspberry Blush Gin, produced in County Waterford for Aldi. Peter Mulrine says they're thrilled.
And that contract with Aldi is important to us because it allows us to get our gin and our gins everywhere across the country, and indeed we also supply to Aldi UK and Aldi Australia, so it really is important for our business.
Sports News on WLR.
With Virgin Media Waterford. Want super fast broadband today? Drop into Virgin Media George's Street and take it home with you. Easy as that.
Starting with soccer, where the dates for the FA Cup semi-finals at Wembley have been finalised. Arsenal will take on Manchester City at 7:45pm on Saturday the 18th of July, while Manchester United and Chelsea will play at 6 o'clock the following day. Leicester City go in search of their first Premier League victory since the season's restart when they face Everton later. Brendan Rodgers' side have struggled for consistency since being back, dropping points against Brighton and Watford. The Leicester boss admits it's a tough period, but believes his side will start winning games again soon.
You can't be up and down fine with every single result. Of course, we're in the business for results, and probably for the first time in 14 months we've had this little period now. But as part and parcel of football, we have to try and understand and analyse where we can be better, and then look to push on.
Elsewhere tonight, Arsenal host Norwich and Newcastle go to Bournemouth. Those games kick off at 6. At 8:15, West Ham host Chelsea in a London derby. In Gaelic games, the Waterford ladies football team will face 4 in a row chasing Dublin and Ulster champions Donegal. In Group 3 of the TG Ceathair All-Ireland Senior Championship, Kieran Curran's side played both counties in Division 1 of the National League earlier this season, narrowly losing on both occasions. The top team will qualify for the All-Ireland semi-finals. The LGFA have also announced there'll be no relegation in this year's championship. And in racing, the action is at Leopardstown and Tipperary today. There's an 8-race card at the Dublin track. That gets underway at 4:25. In Tip, the going is good to Yielding, and the first of an 8-race card has gone to post there. Sports news on WLR is thanks to Virgin Media Waterford. WLR asks you to stay safe by keeping your distance. Our next bulletin is at 2.